Hello, 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 hello. Hey, this is Warren Redlick. We're going to talk about big focus of this video today, this live stream today. We're going to talk about Q3. Q3 is coming. We're going to have a lot to talk about with the Q3 investor call. That is Wednesday. Before we get into that, I'm going to talk about SpaceX, Falcon Heavy, and more. I'm going to talk about Lucid Motors quick, and then we're going to dive in. I think we're going to have an active chat today, especially apparently about Lucid Motors. So we'll get into all of that. Thanks to the moderators before we get started. I see Mark Plot in there. I don't know who else is there, but I just want to thank the moderators for helping out with the chat. So for starters, again, we're going to talk in depth about Tesla Q3 earnings call. That's coming. That's next. I got a ton of stuff to talk about there. But I want to start with this Falcon Heavy. This is big news. Falcon Heavy is SpaceX's most powerful rocket until Starship is flying. And oh, hi, Mark Potashnik. Thank you. And that's going to fly tentatively October 28th. I'm really excited for that. I saw the third Falcon Heavy launch. Falcon Heavy is really cool. Number one, it's got more capability than Falcon 9 because it's got a lot more Delta V. So it can launch into deeper orbits. It may be able to launch heavier payloads. Very important. This is going to be a U.S. Space Force mission. And what's exciting for me, as somebody who likes to watch rocket launches, is when Falcon Heavy goes up, the two side boosters come back and land at Canaveral. And I saw the third Falcon Heavy launch. It's absolutely nuts to watch these like 20-story buildings come flying out of the sky, crack sonic booms, and land like over there. Over there is really 5 miles away, but when it's a 20-story building landing 5 miles away, it's pretty amazing to watch that. So that's coming. I watch a lot of rocket launches. A typical Falcon 9 launch is the rocket goes up, and you can see the reentry burn 200 miles away out over the ocean before it comes in and lands on the drone ship. You can't see the landing burn or the landing because that's over the horizon, but the entry burn is visible when the sky conditions in the sky are right, the clouds, whatever, are right. So really fun to watch those launches. Falcon Heavy's extra special. I don't know if they're going to try to land the center booster or not. That's going to be an interesting question because they haven't been able to land the center booster. If they can land the center booster, that makes Falcon Heavy that much more valuable, that much more cost effective. If they're trying, I don't even know if they're going to try this time. But the two side boosters will come down. They'll be reused. I think they are reused boosters already. What's going to be going up? So this is fun to watch. Very, very exciting. Okay, so that's Falcon Heavy. The other big news about SpaceX is funding Starlink for Ukraine. Now, I personally don't think it's not my place to decide. I'm not a shareholder in SpaceX. I'm a SpaceX fan. I'm an Elon fan. I'm not sure it's the right choice for SpaceX to get involved with this and basically fund Ukraine's communications, the Ukrainian military's communications against Russia. I'm not sure that's a good decision on the part of SpaceX, but I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying, like, I'm not sure that's the call I would have made. Of course, no good deed goes unpunished, as David Sachs pointed out. If you don't watch the All In podcast, they are killing it. Sachs is great. The whole crew, Kalakanis and Chamath and Friedberg, they're all great. I love watching the All In pod. So there's a few things I watch. I watch Dave Lee. I watch the All In pod. I watch Limiting Factor, and I watch a few other things. Apparently a lot of Golden State Warriors videos. So, no good deeds goes unpunished. Elon goes out there on a limb. SpaceX goes out there on a limb, providing free Starlink service or essentially free Starlink service for the Ukrainian military. And then Elon has one tweet suggesting maybe there's some kind of compromise, and apparently he's an enemy of the state. So, you can't do anything. That's crazy. All right, so, Starlink is still working. The Russians are trying to hack it. The Russians are trying to jam it. All kinds of problems. SpaceX taking all kinds of risks. The other thing about Starlink, I just wanted to get into this. This is getting away from the Ukraine part of it. Elon talking about how there's these leaks going on with defense about SpaceX, but Elon points out there were no leaks about their competitors in space, Lockheed and Boeing, who get far more money from the government than SpaceX gets. And some anonymous official takes these snipey shots at SpaceX. And Elon points out Starlink is still losing money, insanely and difficult for a low Earth orbit communications constellation to avoid bankruptcy. When he's asked what the goal of Starlink was, not go bankrupt. Sawyer Merritt said, what's the threshold Starlink needs to hit to be profitable? And he imagined Starship and version 2. Version 2 is the next generation satellite for Starlink will be key for this. Elon says Starship and next generation Starlink satellites are key, but there's a lot of risk that lies ahead before those are working at scale. And there's also another part of that thread Green Element said, does Starship need to fly first before Starlink constellation becomes profitable? And Elon said Falcon can probably get Starlink past break even, but Starship is needed to fund Mars. What happens if you, I've made videos about this before, at least one video about this before. The revenue generation from Starlink when fully deployed is so high, the amount of money that it generates in terms of, you know, millions of subscribers paying $1,000 a year, right? I think it's $110 a month, so it's really more than $1,000 a year. But if you get 10 million subscribers paying $1,000 a year, that's $10 billion a year. If you get 100 million subscribers, which I think the market for Starlink is larger than 100 million people, 100 million customers, you get 100 million customers paying you $1,000 a year, you've got $100 billion a year in revenue. And my ballpark estimate of the cost of getting the Starlink network up and running and replacing 1/5 of the satellites every year, every 5 years or so, you have to replace, each satellite has a lifetime of about 5 years. When you do the math on that, the cost of keeping the network operating is probably 10 billion a year. So if you can generate 100 billion a year in revenue with costs around 10 billion a year, you're doing fantastic. So that's, you know, not just past break even, right? But, you know, Starship is critical to lowering the cost of getting those payloads into orbit because you recover the whole thing instead of burning the upper stage. With Falcon, you lose the upper stage and it makes the cost. With Starship will be able to launch more payload per launch at lower cost because the fuel is less expensive and particularly because you recover the upper stage. Mainly it's recovering the upper stage, but even with Falcon, it can be profitable. So that's an important detail. So, and there's been other launches, Falcon 9 launches, you know, that constantly doing launches. It's amazing the volume of launch that SpaceX is now doing. I feel like there's at least one launch a week here in Canaveral, plus there's launches in Vandenberg, which is an Air Force base in California. Just spinning the wheel. Just keep going, going, going. So SpaceX is doing fantastic. This is very exciting to see. So the other thing I wanted to mention before I dive into Tesla is Lucid Motors. I just did this video, Lucid Death Watch, and the key word there, undelivered. For some reason, Lucid is not delivering all the cars they're producing. They've produced about 3,600 vehicles. They've only delivered about 2,400 vehicles. For some reason, there's 1,200 or 1,250 vehicles that are undelivered. Why are their vehicles undelivered? This is a question, you know, they do these press releases bragging about how many vehicles they produced and how many vehicles they delivered. And it's just like sitting there like, well, why aren't you delivering the other ones? And there's really not much of an answer for that. And there's a consequence. This is pretty striking. Now, the markets are down in general, but Lucid Motors is now at an all-time low. I mean, you know, since they've been Lucid Motors, you know, since after the CCIV merger, I think the stock was always above $10 a share, significantly over $10 a share, and they're down under $12 a share. You know, they publish what seems like good news, and you do the math. And I did the math in this video. I went through the math in this video. I don't see how this company survives. Unless the only way this company survives if the Saudis just give them a blank check. And if the Saudis give them a blank check and you're a shareholder, you're going to be diluted, or you're going to see interest costs going up. This is, but you know, this is the key. The two key details are they've got this undelivered car problem that we'll see if they explain it. November 8th is Lucid's earnings call, and I'll be watching that earnings call. I'm sure I'll do a video after the earnings call. They're probably going to be asked what's going on with the undelivered vehicles. I think the answer is pretty obvious, that the vehicles they're producing are the high-end vehicles, and the vast majority of their orders are for the Lucid Air Pure, which is, in other words, they're producing $150,000 vehicles, and their reservations that they have are for the $80,000 version. And the people who ordered the higher-end versions are probably refusing to take delivery. They're deciding, you know what? I don't want to drop 150 grand. I don't know if you guys are going to survive. Who's going to take care of this car? If I pay $150,000 for this car, 180,000, 120,000, whatever, and then you guys go under, I'm left with a mess. And there's all kinds of problems with Lucid Airs. I don't know where they're hiding them. So Lucid's in trouble. And you know, we're in a period of time when capital markets are in trouble. It's hard to raise money. Where's Lucid going to, if Lucid decide, and they're running out of cash. They're going to run out of cash. I covered this all in the video. They're on pace to run out of cash sometime next year. I think first or second quarter next year. Where are they getting cash? If you're the Saudis, are you going to throw more money into this, or are you going to walk away? And if the Saudis are going to walk away, who's going to give them money? This is my take on it. All right, one more thing before we dive into Tesla. I just wanted to mention this. Burnt hair. Boring company, burnt hair. Elon has changed his title, his bio, and he's now a perfume salesman, and they are selling a cologne called Burnt Hair, which I did. I normally don't buy this merch stuff, but I did order one order of Burnt Hair. That this should be entertaining. It's silly, but it's entertaining and fun. So we'll see what happens with that. All right, let's dive in now. Let's talk about Tesla. That Q3 earnings call is coming. Number one, we already saw this. I covered this earlier. They produced 365,000 vehicles. They delivered 344,000 vehicles. So deliveries underperformed. Production slightly underperformed. They've shifted their delivery approach to, they're going to stop trying to cram in their last minute deliveries at the end of each quarter to pump up their delivery numbers, smooth out the delivery flow, and lower the cost per vehicle of delivery. This matters. And in the words of Stephen Mark Ryan, this matters because ultimately this means Tesla becomes a more profitable company. More profit per vehicle means more profit for the company. And we're going to cover this in a second when I dive into some spreadsheet stuff. So, and they said that they're going to report financial results or post their financial results Wednesday, October 19th. And there will be, as typically, an earnings call. Open question, will Elon be part of the earnings call? My guess would be no. I don't think there's a particular reason for him to be on this earnings call. He had said in the past he wasn't going to be on every earnings call. I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. So, I just did this spreadsheet. This is, I wanted to, let me see, wait. Yeah. Okay. So up at the top, you see Q1 and Q2. Deliveries, 310,000 in Q1, total revenue, 18.8 billion. That's total revenue for the company, including auto and other revenue. And if you work out the numbers, that works out to about $61,000 in revenue for every vehicle delivered. That's a hacked together number that may or may not be an appropriate way of measuring things. And then earnings per share, post-split earnings per share was $1.07. Post-split earnings per share. You go to Q2, we had a hiccup, due to Shanghai lockdown, so they only delivered 255,000 vehicles. Total revenue was 16.9 billion. And you'll notice that the revenues over delivery number was up, which probably relates a lot to average selling price going up because Tesla has been raising prices on their vehicles. It also relates to an increase in storage deployed, which I'm going to show you in a minute. Now you're looking at Q4 and you've got this question. Okay, we know there's going to be 344,000 deliveries. They just told us that. That's in the press release. 343,830, right? So 344,000 vehicles delivered. What's the revenue per delivery number going to be? And I'm projecting roughly $70,000 revenue per delivery. I've got my forecast, a few different forecasts for what happens in Q4 as a result of this. James Stevenson, by the way, his number's down here. James Stevenson has 22.4 billion, which I think I love James Stevenson. I think he has to be wrong because his revenue per delivery number is lower than Q2. When we know average price is going up, and I'll talk about this later, we know Megapack and Powerwall production has increased, and therefore likely Megapack delivery and Powerwall delivery has probably increased. At least somewhat. I'm not saying it's like over the top yet. I think that those big increases in delivery, those are coming, but that indicates that you should see, because revenue per delivery goes up if you have revenue outside of auto. And Megapack has really large revenue, and Powerwall in volume is pretty large revenue. So I think these numbers go up higher. And although I think James Stevenson is generally very bullish, I think he actually might be overly conservative because I think he's missing this number. But we'll see. So if you follow these numbers, the top is sort of my rough estimate of what's going to happen is we might see $24 billion in total revenue for the quarter. This would be high. Like I said, James Stevenson tends to be optimistic, and he's at 22.4 billion. But when I process the numbers, if you get to around 70, the revenues per delivery for Q3 should be higher than revenues per delivery for Q2. I think I'm right about that because average selling price has been climbing. The average selling price of the vehicle, that's the big driver of this, is the average selling price of the vehicles has been climbing. The proportion of Model S's and X's has been increasing as they've ramped S and X. And Model Y is increasing versus Model 3. So there's a lot of reasons why average selling price should be going up, revenue per delivery should be going up. So I'm looking at, I'm probably overly optimistic, but I'm looking at maybe $24 billion in revenue for Q3. So that's one big number to look for in the Q3 numbers, is what's the total revenue, not the auto revenue, the total revenue. I'll show you this on a sheet in a minute. And then you get to earnings per share. Earnings per share is the big number. I think James Stevenson said he's down here at $1.27 earnings per share. I think if I'm right, it's a big if. It's a big if. If I'm right that they pop $24 billion in revenue, then earnings per share is going to be higher than $1.27. We might see $1.50 in revenue and earnings per share. And that's a big jump, and that's the kind of thing that makes Wall Street go, oh. And now, and I just have some different versions of this. You can see the 22.4. I think it's also possible that they outperform my numbers, and you get to 25 billion in revenue. And then this, I just left James's $1.27 here. This might even be $1.60 earnings per share. So you can see, I didn't change, I left these two numbers on here, the $1.27, $1.80 probably go up. You can see where one of the big questions going forward for Q4, you can see I've got Q4 here, I've got Q4 in pink on this one and green in the next ones. If Q4 is 450,000 vehicles and you're still at $70,000 revenue per delivery, you get to over $31 billion in revenue, in total revenue for the company. $1.80 earnings per share, who knows? You know, what if this number goes up? What if it's what if it continues to rise? What if average selling price, you know, the average selling price has been rising, but the deliveries we've been seeing are on previous orders. So as we move forward, we're hitting the orders where the average selling price was higher. So maybe we're going to hit $75,000 with the increase in Megapack and Powerwall and all this stuff. Q4, for all we know, could be $75,000 revenue per delivery, and you can end up with like crazy numbers. But you can look at 450,000 deliveries in Q4. Don't forget, we're pulling about 20,000 deliveries that should have happened in Q3 to Q4. So delivery numbers for Q4 can be higher than production. It still might be that, you know, they're not able to deliver vehicles at the end of the quarter because they're not going to do a delivery rush at the end of the quarter. So you get a balance there. But, you know, net, we should have an extra 20,000 vehicles delivered in Q4 compared to what it was expected. So, but at 450,000 vehicles delivered at $70,000 revenue per delivery, you get over 31 billion. If you get 480,000 delivered, you're getting to 33.6 billion, and you might see $2 earnings per share. I think this is over. I tend to be over optimistic. I think you can say I might be over optimistic. And this $2 per share, I want to be clear why the $2 per share matters, even if it's not in Q4, even if it's $1.80 or $1.70 or whatever. What really matters is what's coming in 2023. Again, you know, let's be clear about this. I'm not a short-term trader. I'm not a short-term, like I'm buying and selling next week. I am a long-term investor, and I'm looking out to the future. And even 2023 doesn't matter that much, but 2023 is a signal about what's coming in 2024 and coming in 2025. If Tesla's able to come close to $2 a share in Q4 and earnings continue to grow, which seems likely, then you're looking at $8 a share or more in 2023. I think James is up to $10 a share earnings per share in 2023. And then when you look at a price earnings ratio, any reasonable price earnings ratio for a company growing that fast, that's where you get to $500, $600 a share or higher. And if the growth is even faster, then you start to see potentially $1,000 a share. And that's kind of what I wanted to get at with this. All right, before I dive in more, I just wanted to mention Megapack is coming, Powerwall is coming. Giga Nevada is now producing 6,500 Powerwalls per week or more, and they're on target to make 442 Megapacks in Q3. This is numbers that we're seeing, right? If you do numbers on that, let me pull this up here. So this is I wanted to you're seeing deliveries in the first red box. Deliveries are in the first red box, and then the box down below that says 846 and 1133, that's storage deployed. I think we're going to, so Q2 2022, we saw 1.1 gigawatt hours of storage deployed. I think in Q3, we're going to see over 2 gigawatt hours. I think we're going to see record storage deployed because we've got this massive increase in production of Megapack. We've got this significant increase in the production of Powerwall. 6,500 Powerwalls a week works out to about a gigawatt hour. And 442 megapacks or 42 megapacks a week works out to about 2 gigawatt hours. So really, we could potentially get to 3 gigawatt hours of storage deployed. Long term, we're looking at 10 gigawatt hours of storage deployed a quarter. Like sometime next year, we may hit 10 gigawatt hours of storage deployed a quarter. So I think we may be looking at 2 or 3 gigawatt hours deployed. And when you do revenue, let me pull this out. Let me just pop back here. So when you do revenue, if you're figuring a Megapack is $2 million and has 4 megawatt hours, right? That's about $500 a kilowatt hour, about $500,000 a megawatt hour. It's about $500 million a gigawatt hour. So if you do 2 gigawatt hours, then it's about $1 billion in extra revenue. And you know, we're headed towards next year. We should be looking at 10 gigawatt hours a quarter, which is $5 billion a year in revenue. And then we should see continued growth. So this is all great stuff. Let me go back to this. I wanted to show you guys some other thing. What else did I want to show you? Oh, financial summary. So this is the chart that we're going to see. And about even with my eyes on the side, you see total revenue. Above that, you see at the top line underneath Q1 and Q2, you see 16.8 billion and 14.6 billion. That's auto revenue. But then the blue box, about even with my eyes on the side of the you see 18.756 or 18,756, 18.756 billion in total revenue, and 16.9 billion in total revenue for Q2. This is where we're looking for what's the big top line revenue number going to be for Q3, and that's where we're going to see potentially 24 billion. You know, are we going to see 22.4 billion as James Stevenson says? Are we going to see 20 billion? Are we going to see 24 billion? I don't see how you go from 310,000 deliveries in Q1, 18.8 billion, and not get over 20 billion when you so dramatically increase deliveries, right? So we're going to be over 20 billion. Are we going to be over 20 billion, 22 billion? Are we going to hit 24 billion or even 25 billion in revenue? This is the big number. So let me go back to here. And the other thing is down below, you see earnings per share, and this was before the split. So you see earnings per share before the split, and you see $3.22 for Q1 and $2.27 for Q2. So Q1, $3.22 works out to $1.07. And we did much more deliveries than Q1. Deliveries was much higher than Q1. So figure $1.07, then go back to my spreadsheet here. So up here, you got $1.07. That's 322 divided by 3, right? So if you're going to have that big of a jump in revenue, that big a jump in deliveries, that big a jump in revenue, you should see a big jump in earnings per share. It's pretty straightforward. Now, is it going to be $1.30? Is it going to be $1.50? $1? You know, it's not. I don't think it's going to be. I think $1.50 is probably over optimistic. I think people think James Steven is over optimistic at $1.27. I'm like, look at this jump. You know, look, we know average selling price is going up. We know revenue is going up. We know that margins probably are going to recover. We don't know that. I think margins are going to recover for Q3. I think margins are going to go back up. I don't know if I have that. Did I have margins on here? Yeah, you can see auto gross margin. You see total gap gross margin underneath the about even with my nose, my itchy nose. You see total gap gross margin at 29.1% for Q2. Oh, let me see if I can. Yeah, there we go. Oops. This is fun. So right here, this is total revenue for Q1. This is total revenue for Q2. Total revenue for Q1 was 18.7 billion. We dramatically increased deliveries, and we know we're increasing Megapack and Powerwall. So I think this number heads towards 24 billion. Like I said, James Stevenson's at 22.4 billion. And then down here, we've got total gap gross margin took a hit. We had been seeing growing gross margins, and it got up to 29%. And then because Q2 was such a bad quarter, gross margins dipped. So now I would expect Q3 with deliveries going up. I'm expecting Q3 to see gross margins return to 29% total gap gross margin, or even hit 30%. And that drives profit up, and that drives earnings per share up. And again, this is the pre-split number. So let me go back to storage deployed. I wanted to make sure we cover this. Just real quick, this is storage deployed, solar deployed, storage deployed, etc. So we were at 1.2 gigawatt hours, 1.3 gigawatt hours. We went down below 1 gigawatt hour in Q4 2021 and stayed below Q1 2022. And all of a sudden we're going back up. And we know that the Megapack factory, and we know that they're increasing Powerwall production in Nevada, and we know Megapack production is increasing. So presumably deliveries are happening, and this number should go up right here. So, all right. So let me go back. All right, let's take a look at the chat. How are we doing on time? We got a lot of time. Okay. And I'm sorry, I wanted to mention, number one, check out the t-shirts, elonbits.com for the t-shirts. The best part is no part. Tesla and Air, Tesla's the next Tesla, Cybertruck t-shirts. Please check out elonbits.com. After this video, I'm going to take a break for about a half hour. We're going to go for probably till 2 o'clock. Maybe it'll be shorter than that. We're going to go for about, I don't know if we're going to make an hour on this video. We'll see how it goes. After this video, at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, which is, I think, 6:30 p.m. UTC, 2:30 p.m. That's 11:30 a.m. California time. I'm going to be doing a live stream on the Locals platform on the Daily Live. I'm going to talk about what I see as economic and geopolitical threats, not just to Tesla, but to the world, to humanity, etc. So let's go into the chat. Let me focus on the chat here. When you can, please do a report on where Megapack delivery is happening. I don't have information on where Megapack delivery is happening. I think the largest amount of Megapack deliveries is happening at utility scale storage. There are large projects with large number of Megapacks being delivered. Brian asks, how you doing, Warren? I'm doing pretty well. I just had a lengthy road trip. Just a little personal note, I just did a lengthy road trip. Kid 1 was in a show on Long Island, and I got to see Kid 1 perform. I hadn't seen Kid 1 perform live on stage in over 2 years, thanks to COVID and other issues. So I got to see Kid 1 singing a duet, a tribute to Sondheim. So that was fun. I went and saw my uncle and my cousin. My uncle is 89. My aunt and uncle are 89 years old, and I got to see them and along with my cousin, his wife, and got to spend quality time with them in southern New Hampshire. Went over to Albany, spent time with friends in Albany. You know, old friends. My best friend I've known for 49 years, since I was 7 and he was 6. And 3 or 4 other friends at dinner I've known for over 40 years. Really, it's not really. I mean, I have this interesting thought in my head about the contrast between old friends and new friends, and I think you learn more from new friends. There's this tremendous amount of trust with old friends. Some of your old friends are learning, and you get exposure to them, and you learn from them what they're learning. There's a lot of great stuff there. So Ben says, FSD when? FSD is now. I just drove FSD. My car just drove me home. I was actually very tired, and I was very fortunate to have full self-driving. This was on the highway primarily, so having autopilot take me home. Roadster win, later 2023. Yes, Tesla's famous for delays. Who cares? You know, look, there's all kinds of bad stuff that's happened in the world that has held Tesla back. And getting 4680 ramped, some of that is probably engineering challenges. Some of it's probably supply chain challenges, but they're making lots of progress. A lot of great things happening. Ben asks any updates on the pod car. I have a electric go-kart that I bought. We're going to modify. I'm talking with an engineer through Upwork. I am probably going to do another road trip, pack the electric go-kart in the back of the Model X, drive it up to Georgia where this engineer is, and see if we can take the steps to modify it to get it closer to what I want for a prototype, so that we can then go into a crowdfunding round. Any plans for collaborations with Dave Lee or others? Don't think so. I have an interview I'm working on with Keena Mullins, who is a startup entrepreneur in solar in West Virginia. I went out and met with her on my road trip, shot some video on the roof. If you check out my Twitter account, I think you can see some pictures from our interview on the our initial interview on the roof of this building where they have a total of 500 kilowatts of solar installed. But we're going to do a Zoom call maybe later this week to complete it and make an interview. Does Warren have a girlfriend or love interest? I do not have a girlfriend. I have lots of love interests. I don't know if anyone's interested in me. Will Elon sell more stock after the 19th? I don't know if Elon's selling stock. I mean, people think he's selling stock. I have not seen an SEC filing indicating he's selling. So I don't know where people think he's selling. I don't know if he's selling. He said he was trying to avoid emergency sale of stock, and I think he succeeded. Cybertruck should be middle of next year. So GS Strategy says, I have to go, guys, girls. Get realistic, please. We're in the worst economic downturn to date. Yes, we are in a massive economic downturn. There's an interview I just watched. You can check my Twitter. You can see a link to it. Ray Dalio was talking about what's going on with the economy, what's going on with macro, what's going on with the Fed, what's going on with the federal government. There's a lot of problems. The one thing I'll say is Tesla has outperformed in every economic crisis we've seen, and I expect Tesla to outperform in this economic crisis as well. So, but I'm going to be talking in depth about economic issues and geopolitical issues on the Daily Lie starting in about an hour. WarrenRedlick.locals.com. There's a link to that video in the description below. There's a link to the t-shirts in the description below. Please check it out, and please consider supporting me on the Locals platform, on Patreon, or as a YouTube channel member. Mark Plot says energy business could be larger than the car business. I think the energy business by volume of battery cells will be larger than the car business. By volume, by gigawatt hours or terawatt hours, however you want to put it. I think the energy business will be larger. I'm not sure the energy business will be larger in terms of revenue or profit, but it will be large. GS Strategy says Tesla will not buy back as you guys think. I do not think, just to be clear, I do not think Tesla's going to do a share buyback. Other people think Tesla's going to do a share buyback. I don't think a share buyback makes any sense. But to be clear, Alexandra won our conversation. She didn't persuade me, but she won. Just want to be clear, Alexandra always wins. Jim Long says, what's the consensus for earnings per share? $1.08 still they should easily be. I actually don't know what the consensus is. I don't think it makes it, like if they earned $1.07 a share in Q1 and they sold 34,000 more vehicles or delivered 34,000 more vehicles, I don't know how earnings per share could not be higher. That's a particularly odd one. When will Tesla market cap overtake Apple? I don't really track Apple to see how they're growing, but I would expect Tesla will be the largest company in the world by the end of next year, and maybe early next year. If we see the growth I'm projecting, if we see, let's say, 480,000 vehicles delivered, which that might be overly optimistic, but if they deliver 480,000 vehicles in Q4 and they're on a 2 million vehicle run rate at the end of the year, that means they'll probably be at a 3 million vehicle run rate at the end of 2023, and they'll probably deliver close to 2.5 million vehicles next year, which is around 600,000, which is ballpark 600,000 a quarter, and we're looking at 344,000 deliveries this quarter. And as the revenue grows up, the margins go up because the total margins go up because some of the expenses don't scale, don't go up at this aren't linearly with growth in revenue. So all these things are looking good. GS Strategy says margins will not recover, Warren, they will decline. Why would margins decline? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, the average selling price is going up, and Tesla's really good at cost control. And there's vehicle gross margin and there's total margin. Total margin there's other stuff going on there. I think margins will at least recover some. Will they recover back to 29%? I don't know. Will they recover and go beyond to 30%? You know, the shift of production is going away from Fremont towards Shanghai, Berlin, and Texas, particularly towards Shanghai. Shanghai's a more efficient factory. It has higher margins than Fremont. I don't know how you don't see that. Future stock splits, I don't care. Oh, Francois Couture, thank you so much for your support. He says, what I like about energy is for the first quarter ever in Q2 2022, total gross profit was over auto gross profit. Energy is finally profitable. That is correct. And that's going to grow. That should get better over time. Oh yeah, also on elonbits.com, now that I'm thinking, not on thirsty, there's one that has TSLA. These are stainless steel water bottles. There's one that has TSLA in red. I think I actually like that one better now. Oh. Yeah, you got to hydrate, right? Let's see. GS Strategy says he's a Tesla investor bull. You don't sound very bullish, GS Strategies. You do not sound very bullish. So GS Strategy says the macro will bring Tesla down. The macro has already brought Tesla down, as in the share price. I think this is an important detail to address with GS Strategies. You can look at the share price. Oh, and hi Neil Evangelista. Nice to see my friend Neil in the chat. There's the share price is down. The company's not down. The company is growing. Revenue is growing, deliveries are growing, production is growing. 2 new factories are spinning up and ramping up. Megapack is ramping, Powerwall is ramping. We're seeing all kinds of growth at Tesla. AI Day showed that we're seeing, massive improvements in technology. I'm kind of beside myself. I just drove to, the Northeast and back. I just put another 2,000-3,000 miles on my car. The car drives me everywhere. I have a car that drives itself. And there's 3 million of them out there, and they're going to be hitting a run rate of 2 million a year of cars that drive themselves. Even if you don't pay for FSD and you just have regular autopilot and you're on a long drive on the highway, the car stays in the lane. The car maintains following distance. If you get enhanced autopilot, I don't know what do you have to do to get lane changes. My car makes lane changes on its own. On the interstate highways, it's really, really good. Really, really, really good. They have the best technology. They are growing. So there's the company, right? The company is growing. The revenue is growing faster than deliveries. And as far as I can tell, profit has been growing faster than revenue. So for some reason, GF strategies think, macro doesn't change that. The average selling price has been rising. Macro doesn't change that. Yes, their costs have gone up some, but Tesla has done a really good job of managing their costs. So what macro does is there's all these investors who are looking at interest rates, and they for some reason decide, well, we have to compress PE ratios because interest rates are up. That doesn't make any sense to me. That's the way Wall Street thinks, okay? But that doesn't change margins. That doesn't change revenue. That doesn't change deliveries. That doesn't change margins or profit. So macro doesn't depress the business of Tesla. As long as demand is there, and as far as I can see, the demand is there, the demand is there, the demand is there, and then people are like, oh, well, the competition is coming. They just had, was it the Polestar 3 came out, and the low end, it's $83,000, and it's nowhere near as good as a Model Y. Model Y probably starts in the 60s. This is ridiculous. The competition is comical. So there's so many good things happening that I'm very, very excited. Fourglass says Arcimoto is a death trap mobile. This is off on the top. Mark Plot says Mark Frohmeyer is out of Arcimoto. I thought Mark Frohmeyer was now chief vision officer or something like that. I think he's still one of the largest shareholders of Arcimoto, last I saw. I don't agree that Arcimoto is a death trap mobile. Arcimoto's, if you're in the regular FUV, non-roadster FUV, I think they're pretty good in a crash. As long as, if you get hit by a 4,000-pound SUV, that's not going to be good. But I think there have been some crashes and people have survived well. There are not many. There aren't many of them on the road. Fortunately, most people don't get in crashes. But I believe I think I heard a story of an Arcimoto crash and the structure of the vehicle protected the occupant. You got like 2 seat belts. It's actually designed pretty safe. It feels less safe because you're so close to everything, because you don't have this big metal shell protecting you. And I think Arcimoto has issues. Can they manufacture at scale? But I would not agree with calling Arcimoto a death trap. I think that's misleading. Let's see. All right. I'm gonna scroll down in the chat and get back to where we are in the chat. Monroe said by Root. Oh, that's another great point. Thank you, Roger Conliffe, for bringing this up. There's a story recently that Tesla is removing the ultrasonics from the cars. And Monroe did an estimate. I've seen other estimates. I think Farzad has this estimate that it might save Tesla $200 a car. Well, if you're going to be making 2 million cars a year and you save $200 a car, what is that, like $400 million? $2 million? That's like $400 million a year. And you're going to scale, and at some point, Tesla's going to be making 10 million cars a year, and you're saving $200 a car. $2 billion a year savings just on that one alone. There's the part savings. There's the part savings work out to $150. And then there's the labor cost of like doing these various things and how much time it saves you and how much less complex it makes the manufacturing. Absolutely amazing that they're doing this. Ben says, Warren, did you watch the Kyle Connor Lucid GT range test? I did not. Do I think Tesla will announce a new Gigafactory location on the earnings call? No, I don't think they will announce a new Gigafactory on the earnings call. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think that's the moment. My personal favorite theory is that October 21 and 22 is TeslaCon Florida. I'll be speaking at TeslaCon Florida. If you're in Florida and you haven't signed up for it yet, go to teslaconflorida.com, sign up. The guy from Drag Times is going to be there. Sandy Monroe is going to be there. Chuck Cook, I think, is going to be there. I'm going to be there. Eva McMillan's going to be there. I don't think Eva's speaking. The rest of the people I mentioned are speaking. Ride the Lightning. What's the guy's name? Ryan McCaffrey from Ride the Lightning is going to be speaking. So if you get a chance to come to TeslaCon Florida, come down to Cape Canaveral and check that out. I believe the day after TeslaCon Florida is some sort of meeting of like Tesla presidents in Canaveral or in Orlando. And my theory is at that event, they're going to announce Giga Orlando. I'm probably wrong, but a couple weeks before the election in November, helping Ron DeSantis look good for his voters, that would be a good trick. And I would love to see a Giga Orlando. But I think Giga Kansas City makes sense. I think Giga Osaka makes sense. Do I think Giga Montreal makes sense? No, but lots of people think Giga Montreal could happen. Okay, I wouldn't be upset if it was a Giga Montreal. Maybe, and there's another theory. The other theory is they're not going to announce one new Gigafactory. They're going to announce 2 or 3. They have the cash pile. You want to keep growing, This is the time. Like, people are like, oh, you're losing EV market share. You want to, while the market's there, this is a Silicon Valley strategy, is you want to grab as much market share as you can as quickly as you can. If they have the money and they have the experience and they have the talent to build more than one factory at a time, which we already know they can do because they did it with Giga Berlin and Giga Texas, why would they only build one gigafactory? Why would they only build one gigafactory? They're going to build 2. Maybe they're going to build 3. That's my take on that. BB says, imagine buying a new gas car in 2028, knowing resale in 5 years will be rock bottom. I wonder about buying a new gas car today. You keep rubbing your nose where you're doing some coke. I don't know. I just get I was up north. My skin gets dry up north. My skin gets dry in Texas. I need more Florida humidity. I'm always touching my face. I got like some psychological thing in my brain. When do you think Tesla will demonstrate a USA coast-to-coast FSD travel to show off its capabilities? I don't know if they're going to bother. I think that the challenge with FSD going coast-to-coast is the car is perfect on the highway. It's basically near perfect on the highway. You know, this is 2 years ago, we drove across the country in the Model 3 I bought from Omar. And I don't think we had an intervention on the interstate highway. It's when you get off the highway and you're going to a supercharger, there's this problem with the mapping and the navigation of getting to the supercharger to charge, where you basically have to take over and back the vehicle into the charging spot. So it's until they get to the point where the car will back itself in. I'm not saying the car has to charge itself, but until you get to the point where the car can actually get into the supercharger and back its way in. And just like yesterday, there's a Buc-ee's in Jacksonville, I think it was. I think that's where I stopped. And when you come out of the Buc-ee's, the map's wrong. The way you get out of the Buc-ee's, the map's just wrong. I don't think that's Tesla's map. I think that's like Open Maps or something like that. So you can't expect FSD to drive across the country if it has to stop to charge. And, you know, like just like a gas car has to go into a gas station and charge. If the map's wrong on how you get out and get back on the highway, it's not going to work. So at some point, Tesla has to update, has to come up with a new way of doing mapping. Let's see. Can you comment how many superchargers are self-sustaining with solar arrays? I think very few superchargers are self-sustaining with solar arrays. And it wouldn't just be solar, but it'd have to be solar plus Megapack. What do I think of rumor of Tesla selling their batteries to eSite Motors? That seems completely ridiculous. Tesla is not selling batteries to anyone. Tesla is using every battery that they make. I thought the rumor was that eSite Motors was buying 4680 cells from Panasonic, which I don't think Panasonic actually has batteries to sell yet. So there's a rumor, it's a rumor, it's a rumor. Why would Tesla sell batteries? They need every battery they can make. Doesn't Tesla also miss EPA numbers? A weird question. Let's see. Are the semis 4680? This is an open question. I think it's obvious that semi is 4680. I don't think they would bother making semis in 2170 or 1865, but I'm often wrong. David Fisher says people need to understand that semi and cyber are not yet factored in deliveries yet. That is true, but it's not being delivered. So how would you factor it in? I know what SMR. I actually don't know what Stephen Mark Ryan says about the competition. I say the competition is comical. I don't know what he says. How many cars did Fremont produce in September? I don't know that number. Gordon Johnson says Tesla's losing market share just this week again. Tesla is doomed, doomed, doomed. Yeah, Mark Plott says this. Lucid has a demand problem. I think Lucid does have a demand. They don't have a demand problem at the $80,000 price point. I think there's plenty of demand at the $80,000 price point. They have a production problem at the $80,000 price point, and they have a demand problem at the over $100,000 price point. That's Lucid's problem. Tesla has 3 million robots deployed. Robots on wheels. I don't have any comment on Nikola. I never followed Nikola Motors. You know, I know this guy, Trevor Milton, whatever, got convicted let me phrase that. I believe he was found guilty by a jury. I don't know if a judge went through and entered conviction yet, but let's see. Why Schadenfreude about Lucid? Okay. Elango says, Warren, why Schadenfreude about Lucid? Just leave them alone and focus on Elon companies. Well, I talk about other topics. I talk about Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods. I talk about Lucid Motors because I'm angry, because I think Lucid Motors distracted the electric vehicle community. They sucked up capital that would have otherwise gone to more productive companies. They lied, they misled. We have to hold people within the EV community accountable when they do wrong. And Lucid has been lying to us and deceiving and misleading since September of 2020, if not before. They had their reveal September 2020. It was obvious to me they were lying to us. They have consistently demonstrated that they've been lying to us all the way through. They check out my video. Wait, check out this video. Where's that video? Check out this video. I go through a lot of this in the video. This stuff matters. Look, if you have a company in the EV space that's lying and misleading and distracting people and taking capital away from productive uses and putting it in unproductive uses, it damages the EV movement. It slows the transition to sustainable energy. It discredits the EV industry. I'm upset because I wanted to believe in Lucid Motors, and in September 2020 they let me down, and I started looking with a critical eye, and they've continued to disappoint. They report one number, they don't talk about another number. One quarter they brag about deliveries, another quarter they brag about production. They don't talk about all the numbers. They're not consistent in their numbers. There's so many things wrong with them. Philip says, go to the Philippines to meet a wife that's interested in having children. You're wasting your time here. No, my latest kick is whether I'm going to move to Costa Rica or Japan and live there. But I don't know. I still have hope for American women. American woman. Okay. So, can the strong dollar affect the profits? There is a theory that the increase in the dollar versus other currencies is going to affect profits. I think that's a small impact. I think they may comment on that in the earnings call. We'll see if that comes up. Yeah, Brent Westmoreland also asked foreign currency dropping in value compared. I think that's a small issue because the cost of the materials that go into the cars would also be falling in dollar value. So I don't think that's a huge issue. What do I think about Mullen at 22 cents? I don't even know what Mullen is. Is that an EV company? Will new platform for robotaxi car be unveiled this year? That's a good question. I don't think so. I think the plan is to start building robotaxi factories in 2023 and start producing the vehicles in 2024. So I would not expect the platform to be unveiled this year. Maybe annual meeting next year. Maybe the shareholder meeting next year would be a good time to reveal that. I think Cybertruck gets unveiled, the final version of Cybertruck. And there was actually one theory is there were some Cybertruck looking vehicles covered in like white tarps. That Joe Techmeyer, the drone pilot for Giga Texas, saw. Why were they there? Why were they covered in white cloth or white tarps? Is Tesla going to show us something about that? I think news about Cybertruck would get people excited. Do car companies advertise their electric cars during the World Series? Probably. Will Twitter be rebranded to Twitla? Be rebranded to Titter. How many cars do you think Tesla will produce in 2024 and 2025? Good question, Will Nurse. So I think we're going to see 2.3 to 2.4 million vehicles in 2023. The 2023 number is really straightforward. We're expecting a 2 million vehicle a year run rate at the end of 2022. We're expecting 50% growth, so that would be a 3 million vehicle a year run rate at the end of 23. So 2.5 would be half of that, would be, halfway between. But because it's on an exponential curve, the number produced would not be 2.5 million, but maybe 2.4 or 2.3 million because it's a sloping curve. So the curve is steeper at the end. So you wouldn't expect 2.5 million, assuming that it only achieves a 3 million run rate at the end of next year. Now, I think there's a chance that the run rate at the end of next year is 3.2 million, and then you do see 2.5 million vehicles for 2023. Now skip forward to 2024. If you have a 3 million run rate at the end of 23, which is the beginning of 24, and you have a 4.5 million vehicle run rate at the end of 24, now you're in the 3.6 million vehicle range for 2024. Going out to 2025, 4.5 million to 7 million. So you're looking at 6+ million vehicles in 2025, maybe 8. That depends. Does the curve accelerate? Do they build 3 factories, and are the robotaxi factories much more productive in terms of vehicles per, vehicles produced? Those things could really push deliveries up. So that's a great question. Thank you, Will Nurse, for that question. Did I see the engineering explained analysis on Tesla Semi? No, I know a guy who's a test driver of Tesla Semi. Okay, for Tesla. And He's very, very positive about what he's seeing with Tesla Semi. Not he's driving the not final versions, but he's very, very positive about Tesla Semi. This guy, these are like basically private conversations. This guy has no reason to, and he's a really straightforward guy. He's not blowing smoke. Tesla Semi is going to be spectacular. Where does all the money go when it leaves the market? That's a great question. I don't fully understand that one. I think it goes into cash. I think it goes into bonds. I think it goes into government bonds. I'm going to say it goes into food, water, and ammo. What will trigger Tesla stock to skyrocket? I think that what's going to... This is from Philip Mazie. Thank you, Philip. Is it Mazie? Am I pronouncing that right? Good numbers. You know, if we see good earnings per share, that's the number one thing. If we see good earnings per share, if we see earnings... Let's suppose earnings per share hits $1.50, which is above James Stevenson's estimate. Right? That would be a big number. That should boost the stock. If they are able to reveal some other numbers. Let's say storage deployed doubles. Let's say I'm right that storage deployed is 2 gigawatt hours or higher. That's something that, and energy's profitable. At some point, Wall Street has to start factoring that in, right? Wait a minute, they've got this going. So I think those are a couple of, skyrocket is a tough one. I think it's going to be the Q4 numbers in January. So January 2nd of 2023, we get the Q4 delivery numbers. If the Q4 delivery numbers are like 500,000, which it won't be that high, that would really big a jump in the stock. But if it's over 450,000, that's probably going to jump the stock, right? And then you get to late January, January 20th or something like that, we're going to have earnings numbers. And if we see $2 a share or more for Q4, you just do the math and you can see, well, then earnings for the year are going to be over $8 a share. And, you know, maybe they're going to be $10 a share. Maybe they're going to be $12 a share. And then also, like, I don't think we're going to see FSD turn a particular corner before the end of this year, where all of a sudden it's like poof. But we are going to see wide release probably by the end of this year. I just don't think that's what's going to turn the corner. We're going to have to see a couple of other technological changes. And one of the things I was disappointed, we didn't see anything about mapping, or we saw a little bit about nav. We saw a little bit about planning, essentially, but we didn't really see mapping and nav in AI Day. And I think in order for FSD to cross that threshold where it's really, really useful and you can really stop paying attention, you got to nail mapping, you got to nail nav. So there's going to have to be improvements in mapping and nav. And like, I unfortunately, this is causing me to say, all right, it's going to take longer. I still think we're going to see close to robotaxi by the end of 2023. Maybe we're going to see robotaxi operating somewhere before the end of 2023, but they have to fix mapping and nav. And if they're working on mapping and nav, they haven't told us about it. So, and I agree with Jim Manley. This is not going to be a short, shallow recession. We've got quite a recession on our hands. All right, let me go back to the bottom of the chat here. I don't know. Did Ben say that? Ben says Lucid can't produce a $25,000 car at this point. Lucid can't produce a $100,000 car yet. I don't think we need to worry about Lucid producing a $25,000 car. They got to produce a $100,000 car. That is this chair? Which Pelican chair are we talking about? I don't know what you're talking. What's the? Oh, over there. Oh, okay. That's not a nice thing to say. Am I going to sell my Starlink receiver? I don't think my Starlink receiver is going to be a collector's item, and I am planning on selling it at some point, but not yet. John Hogan says, if you bring the real estate market up, more homeowners will have the equity to get the proper financing. Way harder for renters, the way to bring up sales. Home buyers are in trouble because interest rates are going up, so mortgage rates are going up, so the monthly payments are going up for the same unit, so they're able to pay less for homes, so that's going to drive down. I mean, real estate market's in trouble because when you raise interest rates, you're affecting buyers' ability to buy. Tesla will produce a $17,000 car? Not yet. James Stevenson is forecasting $338 million currency impact, which is small compared to $22 billion revenue. Well, it's something. I mean, that might take my $24 billion to $23.5 billion, right? James is pretty good about numbers like that. So I mean, he's generally very good about everything. Thank you, Mark Plot, for that. Mark Plot says Frito-Lay's has 4 mega chargers at Modesto, California. Yeah, we're going to see semi rollout. I think we're going to see semi rollout, small scale, this year. I think Tesla's going to deliver a small number of semis to Pepsi, Frito-Lay by the end of this year. And then the tax credit kicks in next year. So you don't want to deliver too many until you're going to get a $40,000 tax credit. Tesla semi will be cheaper than rail. So there's an ongoing, I read this article a few years ago that there's always this ongoing battle between semis and rail. That, particularly long haul travel from, let's say, California to New York, or, even Chicago to New York. When you got trips that are 1,000 miles or more, rail tends to win. There's some point in the middle where maybe it's 500-mile trips or 300-mile trips where semi starts to make more sense and starts to be more cost effective. If Tesla Semi, where diesel semis win out, as Tesla Semi scales and they're able to deliver 500-mile range consistently, their cost of operating with Tesla Semi is going to be better, and that's going to lead to more effective, a greater shift away from rail into semis once you see more volume production of semi. And then I think, probably 2024 or 2025, we're going to see a next generation semi with more range, because as 4680 cell production improves and as they get higher energy density in 4680s, they'll probably be, if they can do a 500-mile range semi today, maybe they can do a 600-mile range semi in a couple of years. So semis are always, there's always this, but on that point, Mark, there's always this point where semis are cheaper in some contexts and rail's cheaper in other contexts, and it's just the point where the shift happens is changing. And then there's a SpaceX, there's a startup called Parallel Systems, which is a rail startup by some former SpaceX engineers, and they've got a whole Google Parallel Systems rail. And it's a really, really interesting startup that some SpaceX engineers are working on to redesign how rail is done, which would shift the pendulum back the other way and favor rail in some context. Philip says, I'm still waiting for a $25,000 Tesla. I live in Virginia where cars are taxed as property, so it's a double whammy to buy a $50,000 vehicle. I think you're going to be waiting a long time for a $25,000 Tesla. Never. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think they're going to sell a $25,000 Tesla in the United States. I mean, right now, the least expensive Tesla is like $47,000. If they make a vehicle that costs $25,000, it's probably not going to be for sale. That's going to be a robo-taxi that Tesla's going to be running as a robo-taxi. It might be sold to fleets, and it's not going to be sold for $25,000 because FSD is going to be required. You're going to have to buy FSD included. Mike Buchanan says first semi-delivery is December 1st, right? I think that's correct. Is Tesla labor force free of COVID problems? I have no idea. I mean, look, COVID's endemic. It's everywhere. It's like we're going to have to, it's something we have to live with. I know, not medical advice. Tesla made the Model Y rear-wheel drive in Europe available from the 26th of August, showing delivery window from December till February. Today, it still says the same date on the website. Do you think demand is an issue? Demand is not an issue. Demand is not an issue. Demand is not an issue. Tesla does not have demand problems. Why did they stop Giga Berlin expansion? I don't think that any Giga Berlin expansion has been stopped. I haven't seen that. I like this. Evan Glansman says, every year there is something. I would shave some of those cars off the 2.3 million. Look, if there's a global thing, I'm going to be talking about this in the next live stream, right? After this video is over, I'm going to be doing a live stream on the Locals platform, on the Daily Lie, and I'm going to be talking about geopolitical stuff and economic stuff. I'm going to dive in depth on that. And yeah, it's very possible that there's going to be some macro effects or some geopolitical effects that are going to affect Tesla. But let's face it, what I want to talk about in the next live stream and then on the Daily Lie is people are always asking me, if there's a nuclear war, how will that affect Tesla? Like, seriously, if there's a nuclear war, your concern is how that affects Tesla? Like, maybe the future of humanity is slightly more important than your Tesla stock? Maybe your survival is more important than your Tesla stock? But we'll be talking about that. Please tune in a half hour to the Daily Lie, and we'll talk about that. I'm going to keep going here for a little while. Matt Smith estimated a $200 million hit for foreign exchange. Yeah, somewhere in there. $200, $300 million sounds about right. So Dave Lee says, or Dave Lee's talking to somebody, he says the dollar strength makes no difference on the bottom line. I don't think it's a big impact. I just don't worry about it. Am I buying more stock? I don't have cash to buy stock. I did buy stock at $246 a share a week or two ago, and I'm out. I don't have free cash to buy stock anymore. Why don't I pay a dozen different surrogates and get 12 kids at once? It's about $150,000 a kid. I don't have that much free cash. My plan about surrogacy, if I go that route, I'm still hoping to find the woman of my dreams and have children with a woman. I still have that romantic notion that I'm going to be able to do that. But if I do go by surrogate, it's going to be spring of 2024 when I start that. When my personal financial situation is more settled and everything else is more settled, that's where that's going to happen. Any news on East North America Gigafactory? There's no news on any new Gigafactories. We're waiting to see. Okay. If Lucid makes a lower cost vehicle, then would they be competitive? Maybe they're a good acquisition for Apple. There's nothing that Lucid has that Apple would want to buy. I mean, there's this thing that Lucid fans have that Lucid has some special technological advantage that others don't have. And you just bought into the lies. I mean, is there some tech that they have that's different? Sure. But for all, like everybody thinks I'm crazy for saying this. For all you know, they just cram more battery cells in their vehicle. Why does the vehicle weigh so much? Why does the Lucid Air weigh so? The Lucid Air weighs more than my Model X Plaid. Right? It's a sedan. They're supposed to be really good on power to weight ratio. Why does their car weigh so much? It weighs so much because it has more batteries than they're telling. They're lying to you about the battery pack. They're lying to you about the battery pack. They don't have any special technology. Do they have some sort of cool, interesting motor powertrain setup? Sure. Is it that special? No. No, it isn't. And they can't make cars. They can't produce in volume. They can't produce in volume. They can't produce at a lower cost than what the price they're selling the vehicles for. They got huge problems. Ben says, Lucid's making improvements. Give them a chance. How much time do you want? It's not me giving them a chance. They're going to run out of cash in 2023. This has nothing to do with me. I'm telling you what I see. I don't stop Lucid from raising money. Lucid either raises money or they don't raise money. I'm not stopping Lucid from making cars. Lucid stops Lucid from making cars. None of this is my fault. I'm just calling it like I see it. They can't produce in volume. They can't produce at low cost. They apparently can't sell their $100,000 plus cars. This isn't my fault. Why would Apple buy that piece of junk? What would Apple do with it if they did buy it? It just doesn't make any sense. Lucid advantages, they have outside source of money from Dubai. No, they're Lucid's outside source of money is the private investment fund of Saudi Arabia, if the Saudis continue to invest in them. But what if the Saudis say, no, we're done? Where are they then? Ben says, I don't think they're lying about the pack. There's no proof of that. There is proof of it. There was an incident where I think it was Tom Maloney charged the car at an Electrify America, I think, charging station, and he put 134 kilowatt hours in a 118 kilowatt hour pack. How do you put 134 kilowatt hours in a 118 kilowatt hour pack? On a DC fast charger that's supposed to be more efficient. It's ridiculous. Can Tesla grab a cheap area to build another factory like Detroit? Tesla will not open a factory in a state that it is pro-union. No way. No way will that happen. Is Toyota being foolish? Is that a rhetorical question? I think Toyota's making some mistakes. Am I going to keep my X? Is the white interior tough to keep clean? I don't find the white interior particularly difficult to keep clean. I don't plan on keeping the X. I plan on selling the X next year when I buy Cybertruck. I will say that the X is really, really nice. If if Tesla stock 4Xs by the time I'm ready to sell that, I think there's a chance that Tesla stock will 4 or 5X by middle of next year when my Cybertruck is ready. If all my life comes together and all these good things come together, would I keep the X? Probably not, but boy, it's so comfortable. It is such a comfortable car. I wish it had a fold flat second row so I could really road trip and sleep in the car better. But and the Plaid acceleration is nuts. The Plaid acceleration, it's like a drug. It's an addictive drug. FSD for commuting is good because you can rest, work online, read, and watch Warren videos. Yeah, I'm not watching videos while I'm driving, but I'm listening to like Dave Lee's interviews with James Dalma, for example. James Dalma and others. He's had a couple of videos about AI Day. I listen to them while I'm driving. I for some reason I'm not into listening to music while I'm driving these days. I don't know what's going on there. Let's see. Do I think FSD will be used for commuting? Yes. Yes, it's not that FSD will be used for commuting. It's that robo-taxis will take over commuting and you won't bother owning your own commuting car. In the long run, most people won't even bother owning a car. Mark Plot says Tesla production cost Model 3 is $15,000. I don't think it's that low, Mark. I think their production cost for the Model 3 is higher than the Model Y because they don't use the single-piece castings yet on the Model 3. I think the Model 3 is a relatively expensive vehicle for Tesla. I'm hoping they do a refresh of the Model 3. I think if they did a refresh of the Model 3 with, front and rear castings and, maybe structural pack, which is probably next year sometime if they do it, I think Model 3 could, that could really make Model 3 a lot more profitable. I just don't think they're devoting the engineering resources to that. They got other things that are more important. They still make a profit on the Model 3, so why bother? How many children will Elon deliver before the Tesla Semi delivers? I think Tesla Semi delivers before Elon delivers another kid. Planet Musk Vlog says, Lucid cars are beautiful, but that's a personal preference. If Lucid used Tesla superchargers, I would consider it. Would you pay $150,000 for a Lucid Air when you could buy a Model S for less? Or you could buy a Model X for less? How much will your Cybertruck cost? Great question. My guess is that the quad motor Cybertruck will be at least $100,000. But we'll see. I'm guessing that they priced the quad motor Cybertruck in the ball. Because, if a Cybertruck is under, let's say a Cybertruck's 90 grand for a quad motor Cybertruck, who's buying a Model X? I guess if you want an SUV, you want an SUV, but I guess the Model X will probably be more comfortable in certain ways. It'll still have some cool features, but there's this danger of Cybertruck cannibalizing Model X, although I think Tesla's ready to let Model X and S be cannibalized. So, Elon said 4680 can do 625-mile range some days. Yeah, I think you're talking about Semi, yeah. What reason is there to like Lucid beyond it's an EV? Great question, Nicholas. Thank you. Let me just go down. I'm probably going to end soon. David Fisher says, Warren, I think everyone would love to hear your view on each of Ford, General Motors, Fisker, Polestar, Stellantis, and BMW. Okay. So Ford is making some good progress with the F-150 Lightning. I think the Mustang Mach-E is a particularly good EV. I don't know enough about the F-150 Lightning. I think it's very heavy. I'm hoping that they do a re-engineering of the F-150 Lightning and save some weight and make it a better vehicle. But the F-150 Lightning seems to be doing well. I don't think they can make them in volume. That's Ford's biggest problem. General Motors seems lost. I don't see any significant progress from GM on EVs. I think we're going to have to wait to see if this is Ultium just marketing and fluff, or is Ultium actually going to be something real? I mean, the Chevy Bolt EUV is probably the least expensive or most reasonably priced EV out there. But they don't seem to make them in volume. I don't even know if you can buy. I was at a Chevy dealer and they had Bolt EVs on the lot. I think it's the Bolt EUV or whatever, but you couldn't buy them. It was for fleet only. Fisker, I think, is an opinion. It's not a fact. I think Fisker is a fraud. Polestar, I mentioned this earlier in the video. The Polestar 3 is significantly more expensive than the Model Y for significantly less value delivered. If that's the best that Polestar can do, is a vehicle that costs $10,000 or more than a Model Y, delivering you less value, I think they're in trouble. Stellantis, I haven't seen anything from Stellantis at all. I don't know what Stellantis is. Stellantis, for those who don't know, is sort of like Chrysler, Dodge, and something else. Renamed Stellantis with a terrible name. I haven't seen anything out of Stellantis. BMW has some EVs. From what I can see, the BMWs that are electric now are not that good. They supposedly have a new platform coming, and it's too soon to judge. But I tend to like German engineering. I think, and we left out Porsche. I think Porsche is doing a great job with the Taycan. I think we're going to see the Porsche Macan coming. I think that's going to be a solid electric vehicle. King Carlo Bostia says, why am I not warm at the idea of a Giga Montreal? I think that the political leadership of Canada has not been friendly to Elon. There's a certain person who's at the top of the Canadian government who has not been particularly friendly to Elon, and Elon has been somewhat critical of him. Why would you locate your factory in a country where the leader of the country has indicated he doesn't like your business? I think it's a terrible idea to locate in Canada. I think you're putting yourself at the whim of Justin Trudeau, and I think that'd be a terrible decision from a geopolitical perspective, which I'll be talking about geopolitics and economics, not really about Tesla so much, and about 20 minutes on the Daily Live. which link in the description below. That will be live in about 20 minutes. I'm going to wrap up here in about 10 minutes. Lucid Air is like a 2000s Camry. I know. I mean, the Lucid Air, when it's working, I think the Lucid Air is a very nice car. Let me say, because I'll say this. I think the Lucid Air, I personally don't find the look attractive, but it is very aerodynamic. It is reasonably comfortable inside. The trunk's a little weird. There's some other quirks with the vehicle. I think the frunk is actually pretty good. It's a reasonably good performing EV. It does have great range. I think I have trouble buying from a fraudulent company, but I think on the whole, the Lucid Air is a pretty good car when it works, and there's some question about whether it's going to work consistently. So I don't want to come to, I don't think it's a Camry. I think that's a little too harsh. It looks a little bit like a Camry, but I don't think that's a little too harsh. Lucid looks like a town car upgrade for old people. No, I don't think it looks that bad. Electric Maverick, I haven't seen anything about that. Tesla announces Transporter in 20. No, this is funny. It's like, I just want to mention this because I drive the Model X Plaid, and I will tell you that in real world driving moments, when you punch it, when you hit the accelerator hard on a Model X Plaid, and I'm sure it's even better on a Model S Plaid, it's not acceleration, it's teleportation. Let me just give you the context, okay? You're on a freeway ramp. You're entering a freeway. There is a tractor trailer going 30 miles an hour, 3 cars ahead of you. There's 2 cars in between you. Everybody's going 30 miles an hour, and the speed limit on the highway is 70 miles an hour. And you see an opening to get to the left lane. And you want to get to the left lane before the 2 cars in front of you can get in your way, and before anybody's coming from on the highway. And so you point the car at the left lane, and you hit the accelerator pedal, and you are essentially teleported instantaneously into the left lane at 100 miles an hour. You're going 30 miles an hour on the ramp, and all of a sudden you are 3 lanes over, going 100 plus miles an hour. And it happens so fast, it just seems like you were teleported. So Plaid acceleration is not really acceleration, it's teleportation. It changes your state, it changes your position, and it changes your velocity instantaneously. Now, I think if you're watching on a camera, you can see it's not instantaneous, but from human experience, it appears to be instantaneous. It's just like, boom, and you're there. Okay. Yeah, Tesla will produce a flying car before Lucid makes a profit. I think Tesla will produce a flying car before Lucid. I'm not sure which is going to happen first. Lucid goes bankrupt or Tesla produces a flying car. That's a tough one. Yeah, elonbits.com for the merch, t-shirts. Check out the stainless steel water bottle. Thank you, Mark, for reminding me. Let's see. What is this conversation? Jupiter James, what? There's some comment here. R. Dotton says, I simply can't afford kids. Getting stuff you can't afford is irresponsible. I can afford kids. Kids aren't that expensive. They're expensive in the long run. They're not expensive in the short run. Lucid has a great supercharging network, sure. I did see a Lucid in the wild the other day. I haven't seen a Rivian in a while, but I have seen them in the past. Porsche Taycans I see once in a while. Lucid looks like a super fat Camry. Did I check out Thunderfoot's latest criticism video on Tesla? No, I have not watched Thunderfoot. Let me know when Thunderfoot actually produces something of value in his own life. Will Semi have FSD? Yes. Lucid UX 2.0 released many improvements. We'll see. We'll see. Elon doesn't believe in flying cars. No, the Roadster is going to fly. The Roadster with the SpaceX package is going to fly. That's what I mean by a flying car. All right. Lucid looks like a Kia. Will Cybertruck have a smooth ride like the X? I doubt it. I think the nature of the I think it is going to have the air suspension, so it might have a smooth ride. Oh, Jupiter James said, you said a kid costs $150,000 to raise. No, I said it costs $150,000 to have a child through a surrogate. The cost of raising the kid, depending on how you do it, right? If you homeschool the kid, or you send the kid to public school and you feed the kid mac and cheese. Kids like mac and cheese, by the way. I'm not recommending it, but kids like mac and cheese. You can feed kids cheap. If you already have a home, it's cheap to house them. The clothes don't cost that much depending on what you buy them for clothes. College is where it starts to cost money, but state school, like here in Florida, tuition is like $7,000 a year. So it's the surrogate part is what's expensive, Jupiter James, not the cost of raising the kids. You can spend crazy money on your kids if you want to, and I do spend a fair amount on my kids, but oh, X-Ray Dwayne says lots of FUD in my area about the electrical grid not being able to handle all the EVs in various neighborhoods, conflicting reports. What are your thoughts? So I actually just had this conversation. I stopped at a supercharger in Binghamton, New York, coming from Albany down, going to meet my friend Neil in Pennsylvania. And I was at the supercharger, and one of the guys who worked at the restaurant, was superchargers in like a diner parking lot. He heard some guy told him that he lives in Atlanta and he got tired of charging his Tesla, like waiting for a supercharger in Atlanta, so he bought a Mercedes instead. And like, I've been in Atlanta, I've been at superchargers, I've never waited. Atlanta has plenty of superchargers. I don't know where he got that from. And he was saying the grid can't handle it. It's like, well, look, if all the EVs are charging at 4 o'clock in the afternoon in places that are hot when all the air conditioning is running, you're right, the grid can't handle that. But if EVs largely charge in the middle of the night when the grid is not busy, grid is perfectly capable of handling EVs. And we're ramping EV production as we go, right? There's, I don't know, 200 million cars in the United States, and there's 2 million EVs, right? And it's going to be a while before we hit 10 million EVs, and that's going to be 5% of all the all the vehicles in the country. So it's going to be a while until we get to the point where we have so many electric vehicles that they could potentially strain the grid. And by that time that happens, there's going to be so much more solar, there's going to be so much more wind, and there's going to be so much more battery storage in the form of Megapack that I don't see this being a significant problem. I think the grid will scale to accommodate the vehicles. Does your Model X have the plaid logo or plaid text on the back? My Model X has the plaid logo. Ben says, Warren, you got to watch Kyle Connor Lucid review. The Lucid GT has such skinny wheels. That's how Lucid got more range. I'm telling you, the battery pack, there's no way that is a 112 kilowatt hour pack. No way. Jupiter James says, if Tesla 5Xs, I literally look. Let me just make this case. I got a few minutes left before I got to wrap this up. I want to make the case on Tesla stock. Okay, look. Go to 2023. If they delivered $10 a share in earnings per share in 2023, and I think it might be $12 a share earnings per share for 2023, but let's say it's $10 a share. $10 a share looks potentially likely. And you give it a price earnings ratio of 80. You're $800 a share. That's basically a 4X from today. And then you're looking out to 2024 and you say, you know what? I think they're going to do $20 a share in 2024. Maybe they're going to do $24 a share. This is the thing. When you look at 2024 and you say, I see $24 a share. Let's suppose you look out to 2024 and you see $24 a share, right? And then you say price earnings ratio of 50. You get $1,200 a share. That's more than a 5X. It's not, if you look at the numbers, it's not hard to see $20 to $24 a share in 2024. Earnings per share, non-GAAP, whatever. Price earnings ratio of 50 is low for a company growing that fast. And you could be at $1,200 a share. And I'm saying end of 2023, you're looking forward to 2024, and you can see that that's coming. You don't have to wait till the end of 2024 to get there. You can see it late 2023, early 2024, after the Q4 earnings call in January for Q4 2023 and early January of 2024. You know, what's the earnings per share in Q4 of 2023? If it's $5 a share, then you know you're doing more than $20 in 2024. That's how you see a 5X or more. All right. So I need to wrap up. I need to take a 10-minute break. So please check out the t-shirts at elonbits.com. Please, 10 minutes or so from now, check out, there's a link in the description below. I'm going to be doing a live stream talking about geopolitics and economics broadly. I'm sure I'll talk about Tesla a little bit in the middle of that live stream. Live chat is accessible to supporters on that platform, but anybody can watch it. And then supporters also get early access to my videos and so on. Please consider supporting me on the Locals platform, on Patreon, or as a YouTube channel member. Check out the t-shirts at elonbits.com. Please check out my other videos. Please like, share, please like and share this video. Subscribe to my channel. And thank you so much for watching. And thank you to the